Now we start this hour in Europe's defining crisis, where the Kremlin has said it could not assess the prospects for peace negotiations over Ukraine and blamed Kyiv for pausing talks, while reiterating a series of wider claims about foreign involvement and energy policy. The Kremlin also addressed recent comments by US President Donald Trump, urging countries to stop buying Russian oil, saying Moscow had heard those calls, but many countries would decide for themselves how to proceed on energy purchases. Now, separately, in that same statement, Moscow has repeated allegations that foreign fighters were present on the front lines in Ukraine and added that Russian forces would destroy them. It also claimed that Russian military personnel frequently overhear foreign languages spoken on the Eastern Front. Independent verification of the Kremlin's contentions about the causes of the negotiation pause, the presence of foreign fighters and intercepted front-line communications was not available in the Kremlin's statement. Okay, we're now joined by Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to the Defence Minister of Ukraine, and he joins us live from Riga in Latvia. Glenn, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Some aggravating words coming out of the Kremlin today, blaming Kyiv for pausing these, for the pausing of peace talks, and also claiming there is foreign troops fighting on the Eastern Front of Ukraine. What's your analysis of those words coming out of Moscow today? Glenn, can you hear me? Glenn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, very clearly, yeah.
Okay, Glenn. We've just heard that the Kremlin has blamed Kyiv for pausing talks, reiterating a series of wider claims about foreign involvement in energy policy. There's also claims coming out of Moscow saying that there are foreign fighters on the ground on that Eastern Front. Can I get your reaction to what the Kremlin has said? A possible reaction as well to the new US sanctions and how much it is affecting Russia's war machine?
Well, I guess from the nonsense coming out of the Kremlin at the moment, that as we say, the pips are squeaking, that they're under a bit of pressure. The sanctions are actually quite serious. I mean, I'd almost say this is the first time that the US has put in something that actually worries the Russians. The nonsense about peace talks is nonsense, because they've just said themselves that they're not intending to have any talks in Budapest, and then that they won't have talks unless all their demands are met. So they're sort of going back on themselves at the moment. It's I think it's best to say it's an interesting time, because with Zelensky making comments that he's willing to go for peace or peace talks, but he's not willing to compromise, basically, and Russia pretty much saying the same. I don't think we're going to go anywhere forward with peace talks, but Russia is clearly under pressure.
And what are your thoughts on this statement, Glenn, about the foreign troops that Russia claims are fighting on the front lines in the east? It says that it's heard foreign languages spoken fighting for the side of Ukraine. Are there reports on this?
I mean, but it's complete. I'm not going to say it's complete nonsense. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing I've heard for a long time from Russia, because it's very open in Ukraine that there are volunteers from countries all over the world fighting on the front line. So of course they've heard foreign voices. I mean, the Foreign Legion is public. I mean, it's public. People know who's in it. It's on Facebook, and the deaths for foreign soldiers are all in the museum. Pictures of them and their life stories are in the museum in Kyiv. So for Russia to suddenly raise this is obviously clearly more about more about internal consumption than it is about external consumption. And you know, they're trying to show why they're losing and why things are not going as well as they want.
Thank you very much. Do stay with us. We have some further news coming out of the conflict. And Ukraine has targeted Moscow with drones for the second consecutive night, injuring one civilian in the Bryansk region. The Russian Defense Ministry has stated that air defense units have destroyed 17 Ukrainian drones, including one heading towards Moscow and several over the Kaluga and Bryansk regions. Additionally, Moscow's mayor has confirmed that emergency services were dispatched to the site where one of the drones fell, though no damage was reported. Meanwhile, in a separate development, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that his country is ready for peace talks, but will not make any territorial concessions to Moscow. He has further stressed that Kyiv will not withdraw troops from any additional territory, as Russia has demanded and is open to negotiations in any neutral country except Russia or Belarus. This comes as plans for a highly anticipated summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest this month has been, of course, put on hold after Moscow insisted that Ukraine must cede more territory as a condition for a ceasefire. Okay. We are now joined by Andrea Lucidi. He's a war reporter and he joins us live from Civitavecchi in Italy. Thank you very much for joining us, Andrea, here on the broadcast. Of course, we hear of more aerial attacks going from Ukraine across to Russia. However, this anticipated summit between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, it's supposedly not going to happen anymore. The Russia says that it's merely been postponed. Donald Trump says it's cancelled. What are your thoughts about the current relationship and the way the war is going for the Russians, even given that you have a trade negotiator in Washington at the moment, speaking of a positive future between the Russian and the US relationship?
Well, as a war correspondent that it's based in Russia and Donbass, I can hear every day the Russian news, the Russian newspapers, and there, till now, there is optimistic perspective for the negotiation between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, because for the Russian policy, Donald Trump, and for the Kremlin, also Donald Trump represented an alternative for the American policy, because with the administration of Biden was quite impossible to take any negotiation or also any contact for plan a possible meeting for future negotiation. And Donald Trump said that the meeting was cancelled due to the useless moment. He said that this moment is useless for any negotiation because from his perspective, there are no useful proposals from the Russian side for have negotiation in this moment, but for the Kremlin, the meeting is only postponed for another moment. And this is clear from my point of view that for the Kremlin, the door is always open for future meeting with Donald Trump. It's interesting to note that also the foreign minister of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, said that it's mandatory to discuss about the deeply causes of the conflict. And it's a topic that Zelensky refused at all to treat. Yesterday, Sergei Lavrov said that the Russian Federation recognized Ukraine as a state, but it's not recognized the actual regime of Zelensky, and that the Russian Federation is ready to accept Ukraine as a neutral state, as a state that refuse any military alliance with the West and the East, as a neutral country. But this is at the moment not acceptable for Zelensky. And from my point of view, it's also interesting to note that the Kremlin is more interested to negotiate with Washington and not with Kyiv. And yes, this is important because from the Russian side, there is the point for the actual conflict in Ukraine. It's not came from Ukraine directly, but is only a proxy war from the US.
Glenn, I wanted to come back to you next. Does Kyiv feel like it has enough leverage now, especially with the United States, militarily or politically, to refuse these concessions outright?
That's a good question. I mean, I think they do, but I mean, I think that is a good point that Andrea made about that Russia is looking more towards America. And I think that they understand that they're not going to get anything out of the Zelensky government in a hurry. But I think it's more than that, that it's the country is totally behind what Zelensky is saying at the moment. So it's not like there's any separation between government and society. Society is not willing to compromise. There's been too much blood spilt and too much ground taken for there to be compromise. So, they can try what they like with America, but I think Zelensky will just keep going, relying on Europe and the other countries that support them, like Japan, South Korea, Australia, to help them through the difficult times.
Yes, and Andrea, I just wanted to come to you finally before we move on. Some would say this is a forced annexation that the Kremlin is proposing. How is this a proposal? How is forced annexation a peace proposal rather than a demand for a surrender?
Well, at this moment, after the war and all the resources that the Russian Federation spends for this conflict, it's impossible that the Kremlin will accept a treaty without the possibility to take the 4 regions that the Russian Federation claimed. So Zaporozhye Oblast, Kherson Oblast, Lugansk People's Republic, and Donetsk People's Republic that are ready for the constitution of the Russian Federation are a part of the Russian territory. So I think that a realistic future for this region can be a solution like between North Korea and South Korea. So maybe the future border will be the contact line. And for this reason, also the Russian army try to advance at any moment for make more pressure to the government of Kyiv. But for the future of Ukraine and Russia, after the war, they need to resume any relationship, because without relationship and without communication between Ukraine and Russia, can't be any peace and any future for the people that are living in the claimed regions.
Okay, thank you very much. Do stay with us, gentlemen. We are moving on.